everyone, this is Meg. I hope you guys are doing so good today. I decided to go do a tutorial on the little cards that I debuted in the teddy bear journals that I sort of, in a joking fashion, called TV cards. I decided that I really like the idea of how they look like a vintage television screen, and I don't really make up anything at all. I just don't consider myself that creative. I kind of just fly on the wings of other creators and make things a little bit more my own by personalizing them. And this is probably not even new either, but I'm just going to say that this is my little creation and I'm going to call them TV cards. And it is nothing exciting, guys. It is nothing that breaks sound barriers or anything. It is just a journaling card that sort of resembles an old-fashioned television. You know, the ones that have the rounded corners and then the screen is really small in the middle of it, and it's usually also a rounded corner screen. And the reason why I thought about it being what I wanted to call these is when you're flipping through the television stations, the pictures that sort of appear in front of you are not well polished, well thought out pieces of art or photography. They're just completely random images that flash in front of you. So it could be, an awkward situation or something that's not quite in frame, or as the camera is panning away, you get sort of half of the shot before it goes to the next scene. So this is a great way to use your images out of your books and magazines that are not, I guess what I would say is you wouldn't consider them your favorites. Images that are kind of like, it's not the cutest in the world. It's not the subject matter that really lends itself to the theme of journal that I'm doing. So this is a great way to use these images that you don't know what else to do with, because they're going to be random, just like what happens when you turn on the television and flip through the channels. This is way back before we had the digital channel guides. This is just turn on the TV and see what's on. And a lot of these retro images that I have in my stash from children's readers are the perfect thing for these little TVs. Now, I've pretty much talked through the whole tutorial explaining my process or my thought process behind why I wanted to name these TV cards. But I took 8.5 by 11 paper and I printed some digital patterns on them, and then I cut them into quarters. You can also do this with a 12 by 12 sheet, and I'll show you that in a moment. I actually like that a little bit better if you want to have a large TV card, maybe as a journal topper. But I just loosely glue them down onto the card after I round the corners of the image and the card. That's the key part to making it look like a TV. And then, because I can't help it, I always go and I sew around the edges. And I really like to use zigzag, which kind of reminds me of TV too, like an antenna, or when you turn it on and there's static and you see these wavy lines. So these are just a few of the other cards that I've done. Like I said, weird, awkward images that I've sort of thrown into a box and said I'll be able to figure out how to use these one day. Now, this one is turned wrong, I realized that, but I really wanted to use that image. So here is a sheet of, it's coming off as orange, but it's actually coral, a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, and it's not patterned, which is fine. I prefer patterned paper, but I'm also trying to use up things that have been sitting around and I don't know what to do with them, and that's the case oftentimes for me for 12 by 12 solid color cardstock. So I'm going to turn these large squares into journaling cards that look like one of the 1950s square TVs. Same process, just a little bit larger image to work with. So the images that we cast aside earlier that were a little bit too wide or too tall for our quartered 8.5 by 11 pages, we're now able to use on the 12 by 12. I don't remember what this picture is showing. It's not Dick and Jane, but I think it was just a brother and sister who wanted to have a celebration of all of the countries in the world, and so their mom made them a cake and they put flags in it. So again, random, what journal are you going to use this in? So this is a great opportunity to use a picture that you don't really know what to do with to make a fun and eclectic journaling card. Speaking of eclectic, I think that's what I'm going to be working on next. I love making eclectic journals because it allows me to do things like this, which is use pieces that have been collecting dust in my stash, as well as I don't have to think so hard if I don't have to make everything agree with a theme. I do kind of hate covering up the images on the back because sometimes they're just as pretty, but if we didn't, we would have so many papers, y'all. Sometimes we just have to make a choice and say, you know what, I'm going to pick my favorite of the two and the other one's going to be glued down, and that is okay. My trusty glue stick is my favorite thing to tack things down with if I'm going to the sewing machine. It also keeps you from getting those overly saturated lines or bubbles in your paper, which I cannot stand if I'm going to have a journaling card that I want somebody to be able to write on. I want it to be smooth so you can put any type of pen to it. I think the hardest part is getting it in the exact center. Don't look too hard at any of my cards in any of my journals because they're never exactly in the middle. You could leave these plain as is, or another thought that I had is to go sort of really go with the TV theme, offset it a little bit, and maybe put some buttons and dials on one side. Wouldn't that be really fun? Here are just a few images that I wanted to show you that I plan to make more cards with. That's from an actual TV show. So you could use stills from television's shows to make it even more like a TV. I think the thing I have most of are images from reader books. So this is a great way to use those up. Y'all, thanks for watching today. I appreciate all of you joining me as always.